So much, Meryl. Hi, everyone. Glad you all could make it because Cindy Key is amazing. Cindy is a transition strategist and the managing partner of Key Concepts, which is a Texas-based corporation, and she'll tell you more about that. But her Cindy's personal experience taught her career transitions can be tough. She asked me to share this with you. Just after I got married, I lost my job. That situation caught me by surprise. I had been there 8 years. I had no clue how to explain my value, what I could do for another employer, or how to land a new job. Combine that early experience with 7 corporate moves with her husband, and Cindy has developed systems, tools, and processes that are highly effective in communicating value and managing transitions and transformations for individuals and organizations, from simple to complex. She's a former HR insider and brings the benefits and resources once reserved for only the most senior employees to all results-driven professionals around the globe interested in leveraging their personal brand and moving their careers forward quickly and with less stress. Cindy's a certified business manager. She's a senior professional human resources, certified business coach, certified personal branding strategist, and a graduate of the training and development program of the University of Oklahoma. And so I'd like to now, when she's not assisting clients, she's very often volunteering for different community and literacy projects. So I'd like to introduce Cindy. Cindy?
Hi, everybody. It's great to be with you today, and I'm very excited. I also feel a little bit at home. I spent some time in New Jersey, and I spent 15 years in the Boston area. So the cold is nothing new to me. In fact, I love the cold as far as when I have snow, so I can snowshoe. But I don't love the damp cold that we have in Louisville, Kentucky, which is where I am currently. I'd love to share with you some of the things that are important about your personal brand. And today what I want to do is help you understand the importance of what your personal brand is, why it's an important career asset, how to effectively manage it and use that career asset, because everyone does have a brand, and what action that you can begin to take right now. I hope that you will share both in the chat box your questions and your comments. Sharon and Meryl have kindly offered to manage the chat box. And throughout this presentation today, I'm going to share activities that if you aren't currently leveraging your personal brand, if you will participate with a piece of paper and a pen today, you will have some key things and actionable items that you can take with you into the next week, month, year, and move on to really leverage a personal brand. In the early 1990s, I had an opportunity to move into a stretch assignment in the marketing department for the corporation that I was working with. And it was joyful in a lot of ways, but it really began to help me realize why so many of our senior leaders got and moved on and secured positions that other people didn't. And it was they understood the visibility of their brand and why it was so important. Shortly after that, there was an article published in You Inc. about a brand called You. And that kind of began the transition into personal branding and the personal branding spaces. In the about 2008, I got involved in this from a personal perspective, and I've trained thousands of people in how to leverage their personal brand. I really do try to simplify this and make it really simple. So the first thing I'd like to start with, I'm going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint. You guys will have the opportunity to have that information later if you want it, and follow Meryl's instructions in order to get it. But the joy in this for me is really watching people bloom and watching them use their brand. What is a brand? A brand, the definition I use is it's a unique promise of value. That's what a brand is, and everyone has a brand, whether you know it or not.
Cindy, are you sharing your PowerPoint right now?
I am.
No.
Nope,
No,
it's
you
not
don't see
coming
it.
up. Hold on. Let's see what's happening.
Yeah, you haven't shared your screen.
Let me try again. Technical difficulties, I apologize.
There we go.
Okay,
Okay.
and is everybody hearing you? Because Cam Lee has said she cannot hear. She can
You
see.
cannot hear.
No, we can hear.
I can hear. We can hear.
We can hear. All right. So Cindy,
can
now
hear.
you're good to go. We got the PowerPoint.
I've just turned up my mic a little bit as well, so maybe that will help a little bit. So what is a brand? A brand is a unique promise of value. Very simply stated, brands reside in the hearts and minds of consumers. You have a brand, everyone has a brand, every product has a brand, whether it's promoted or not. For individuals, it's really about uncovering your brand, and personal branding is the process by which we market ourselves to others. It's a very simple process, but most of us simply don't use it. 75% of all those in a career transaction truly fail to clarify their value for an employer. How many of you, just a show of hands, how many of you have been hiring managers or been involved in the hiring process? Yeah, so quite a few of you. So how often, Paul, do you find that someone can't communicate what they can do for you during hiring? Yeah.
Can we
I take
that?
myself off mute. Yeah, all the time. That's frequent.
Yeah, it's very frequent. And we assume that because we know what we can do, the things that we communicate typically is in our resume or our LinkedIn profile. And most of that really doesn't help because we really don't tap into how to market what we actually bring. Who benefits from leveraging their personal brand? Leaders, entrepreneurs, job seekers, anyone in transition. And I strongly, strongly encourage you not to stop leveraging your personal brand once you land. That's probably the best advice I can give anybody, because it's really all about how people know you. My mother used to say, it's all about your reputation. Your personal brand is a lot about your reputation. It really is about knowing yourself and communicating what you want to be known for, what you do well to others. Your brand resides not with you, but in the hearts and minds of other people. And the only way for you to really share that information is to be intentional about sharing your brand. It helps you to control your wealth. It helps you control your achievements. It helps with job satisfaction and fulfillment. It also really helps with visibility. Visibility is so important in a job search that I think everyone knows how important it is. If you're not seen, if you're out of sight and out of mind, how many offers do you get to interview? Very few.
Zero.
Zero. Thank you, Paul. Absolutely. That is very true. So how do we use our personal brand? Really, really quick activity, and all of you can do this. Jump over and Google yourself. Type in the name you want to be, that you're known by, or that you want others to know you by. Take a look at what came up. And ask yourself a very, very basic question. Does what came up for me represent what I want to be known for? So one or two of you either put in the chat box or unmute yourself, whichever you prefer. If we have a lot of people trying to talk at the same time, we'll move to simply chat. But what came up? Somebody share what came up. What was the first thing that popped up for you?
My LinkedIn profile.
Okay. So Paul, your LinkedIn profile is something that you've worked on, I assume, and you're happy with those results?
I work on it a lot. Am I happy? I'm not crying too much.
So, but you're delighted that that's the first thing that showed up on Google.
Yeah, definitely that's a positive, I think.
Absolutely, it's a positive. Did anyone have nothing show up? It's okay, because we all at one point in time probably have Googled ourselves and found nothing about us.
Cindy, I have Googled myself recently, and there's somebody with my name, but a different initial, middle initial, and she's a makeup artist, and it's all about that person. So I have like 6 or 7 things, so I don't come up on the first page.
Okay, so the good thing in the way she's using her branding that works for you is that she has used an initial, and that if she suddenly went from being a makeup artist to being an axe murderer, you would be delighted that she's using an initial. So a couple of things that you can do, and we're going to talk about to do that. Do you appear on the second page?
I don't remember, actually.
Okay, that's okay. I was just curious. The good thing about that also, Erica, is that when someone finds a particular initial, they're going to look at their reference material. They're going to look at your resume or whatever other piece of information they have about you and go, oh, she doesn't use the middle initial A or P or whatever it is. So this must not be her. Let me look a little further. So they're going to, what do you think someone's going to do? They're going to put in your city. They're going to put in your professional title. They're going to put in other information. So, and we will talk a little bit more about how to change and how to evolve that. But the good thing about that is that because that particular person is using a middle initial, it makes it very clear who is not. And that's a very good choice for you. If you're a John Smith, you definitely want to think about using something that differentiates you, such as a middle initial. Or if you're, I have a client who is a fourth, and he comes from a long line of attorneys, and he really has to work extra hard to show up because there's many years of information about first, second, and third.
Cindy, Maria Alonso would like to ask a question. She had her hand raised.
Absolutely. Wonderful, Maria.
Yes, nothing shows up until the 3rd page, and then it seems like it's something like a public record, but half of that information is false or incorrect.
Okay, so this is a great question. So one of the things you want to do is work on your LinkedIn profile so that LinkedIn has so much reach so that your LinkedIn profile is something that will come up much further than the public information. And especially if the public information is false, it probably is pulling on a variety of sources. Some of that, if it's really detrimental or defamatory, you can work on through managing your reputation. But the easiest things to do are to initially work on your LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn has so many members that using and leveraging your LinkedIn profile, it will help it come up. Very often, the reason your LinkedIn profile doesn't come up is because you haven't used a vanity URL. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on. Does that help, Maria?
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Anyone else?
Cindy, there's someone who wrote a comment in the chat box that said, LinkedIn typically shows up first, but your view is not the same as the public view. A better test is to have someone else whom you have no relationship in Google to Google you. Do you,
Yes.
you want to comment on that?
Absolutely, you're correct. Somebody's a tech person, and I appreciate that. You're bringing that up. Have someone else Google you, or go to a public library, which is a little difficult at this point in time in some areas, but or wipe out your cookies and things like that. But absolutely, what do you show up? How do you show up as someone else? But the pro and the con to that is also, if someone is Googling you for a job, they already have some reference in what's saved, usually in their computer. If they pulled up your resume and then they immediately Google you, that probably is going to help as well. But you're absolutely correct. So yeah, ask somebody who doesn't have a connection to you, or use a public computer that often has all the cookies and information cleared from it. Because if you Google yourself often, it's going to pull your information up quicker. Absolutely. Knock out your cookies every now and then. Anything else?
No, that's it for now, I think.
Wonderful.
Sorry,
All right.
just a quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so I noticed, so I did Google myself and my LinkedIn didn't pop up. I didn't pop up to the third page, and it was my my role with my previous employer, which isn't my current role on my LinkedIn. And I'm just wondering, because it used to be that I did pop up. I think I was the first one to pop up with my name. And now I go under Jacqueline Linton. Now there's so many other Jacqueline Lintons. I didn't think it was such a common name that come up before me. And I'm just wondering if my LinkedIn doesn't pop up because I'm still kind of in the process of revising it, updating it, so it's not like it's open. Do you think that has something to do with it?
Absolutely. If it's not open, that will be one reason why.
Okay, because it used to be that my link that I popped up like the first one when I Googled my name, and now I'm not. So that does have something to do
It
with
does have something to do with it. And I'll spend a little bit of time talking about 3 critical things you want to think about on your LinkedIn so that it will pop up in just a
Okay,
little
but do you
bit.
agree that kind of while you're still editing it, you shouldn't have it open because you don't want every change to come through, right?
Right. And you can close it, do all your changes, then open it back up to the next day. Let that sit out there for a day or two, go back and change it. If you're making over a 48-hour period of time a ton of changes, don't go to that trouble.
Okay.
It'll be fine for it to be down for a couple of days and then to bring it back up. But if you're making changes over time, and I definitely say do changes in private on your LinkedIn. Absolutely. Your network doesn't need to get a message every time you change a comma or a period or make a little change. Absolutely. Anything else before we move on? Hopefully this is helpful information, but it's really how we begin to look at and use our brand. Everyone has a brand and you're using it right now, whether you're doing it intentionally or not. Thank you, Jackie, for that question. And if anyone else is changing, if I were to change going by Cindy to Cynthia, it would probably take me about 2 years to make that change and have the same impact that I have now. But I have probably almost 20 years of very solid intentional practice on my personal brand, both online and offline. So that's always something to think about. Doesn't mean don't do it if it's the best thing for you, because transformation and changes are what life is all about. So we've talked about what appeared, and ask yourself the other question, not so much did you appear, but ask one more question. Did how you appear actually reflect your unique value? Does it reflect how you want to be known? And these are questions that I'm going to challenge you to jot down and enter into an introspective and reflective process for yourself about that. because this is not something you can do in a This is something that takes a little bit of time. It takes asking the question, what is my unique value if I'm not clear about it currently? And then asking the question, is what I have out there online and what I share every day truly reflective of my unique value? And is it reflective of how I want to be known? No matter where you are in the personal branding process, I want to take you through, with your permission, through 3 key steps that if you'll stick with me and do this today, we'll really have an opportunity to build a solid foundation to move your branding to the next level. If you're a beginner, you can move it up. If you're excellent at this, you can begin to take it a little further. Fair enough? So 3 steps to leveraging your personal brand. Uncover your aspirations, define your unique promise of value, and communicate your brand. Communicate your brand in the best possible way for you. Some of you will realize that during a job search, LinkedIn is imperative, but later on, LinkedIn may not be the most important place for you to be communicating your brand. All right. So when we think about uncovering our aspirations, one of the key things that I like to share with folks is I have hundreds of quotes, but this is one that I think is very applicable. To the person who doesn't know where he wants to go, there is no favorable wind. This is a quote by Seneca. And everyone who's engaged in a transition and a job search has asked themselves this question in one fashion or another. Where is it I want to go? What do I want to do next? You may change your mind even tomorrow about what you want to do, but if you don't know where you want to go, where you want to land, or have a pretty good idea, it makes your job search very challenging, but it makes branding even more challenging. It makes communicating your brand even more challenging because you don't know who you're talking to. You don't know who your target audience is. What do you want to be known for? Uncovering your aspirations. This is a great activity for you. What do you want to be known for? And one of the best ways to think about this is to ask yourself, if I were at a dinner party, how would I want someone to introduce me 10 years from now? Because that's what you've been known for the last 10 years. So I'd really like for you to take a couple of minutes. I'm going to give you really 2 minutes. And Sharon, if you'll help me a little bit on timing this, answer this question for yourself. How do you want someone to introduce you? And I'm going to give you, before we start the timer on it, I'm going to give you a little bit of a way to think about this so you can begin to position it. And this is something that you'll begin today and continue to work on. If I'm at a dinner party and the hostess is going to introduce me, a couple of key things I'd like for her to say 10 years from now. This is Cindy, and she's known for blank. She's accomplished blank. And if you want to talk about blank, you want to talk to her. When I can answer the questions that go in those blanks very easily, she's known for helping people in a transition. She's accomplished several corporate and individual transformations. And if you want to know anything about a transition or a transformation for yourself or an organization, you will want to talk to her. That's what I want to be known for. That's what I am known for. And now or 10 years from now, That's what I'd like somebody who, I'm at a dinner party and I know no one else in the room. That's how I'd like to be introduced. It's very simple, but it tells anyone in the room a lot about me and whether or not they want to talk to me. If they're happy in their career, they've been there 20 years, they're about to retire, and they couldn't care less about a transition or transformation, it's probably not a great conversation anyway. So let's take about 2 minutes and do this activity for yourself.
Okay, I set it for 2 minutes, so I will tell you when that's up.
Thank you.
Ten seconds, everyone. Okay.
Thank you so much, Sharon. So for most of you, I'm guessing if you're in a transition, you focus this on your career. If you did, that's wonderful. If you didn't, that's also okay. How many of you might have found this a little bit challenging? Anyone want to raise their hand? Just a little quick poll. Anybody find it challenging? The first time I ever did something like this, I was ready to beat my head against the wall. I found it very tough. And I found it tough for such a long time. I think that's why I enjoy helping people do this, is because I know sometimes it's a challenge. Don't get stuck. Ask questions and ask for help if you're struggling with this. Ask others, what do you know me for? What am I known for? Ask people close to you, ask former colleagues, ask others. What am I known for? And you can be known for something that's not work related. You might want to be known as a great amateur photographer. That can also be part of your professional branding. You bring your whole self to work. It doesn't just have to be about work. Are there any questions before we move on? This is going to be something, again, that you're going to continue to work on. You're not going to get your brand exactly where you want it in one day or 1 hour session, and it's going to continually evolve. So do a gut check on this every 90 days to every 6 months. Are there any questions in the chat?
Miriam just has an interesting comment. She says it's easier to do for the present than 10 years in the future.
Yes, and that's fine. You can start there. And why is that? Why do you think that is? Any
I need to-
thoughts?
I need to project into the future. It's a little bit hard to know what's going to happen.
Right, right. And and I would venture to say that you're very good at living in the present moment. So think about that from a brand perspective. Being in the here and now. So that may be part of your brand that you're beginning to uncover. So those types of things, be aware of them and look at how you use them. You may be very good at being extremely present to what you're doing. So don't ignore those things. Thank you for sharing that.
Rebecca asks, can this be part of the tell me about yourself interview question?
It can be, absolutely. Everything you do in personal branding will help you in interviewing. It will help you in sharing who you are every day in your work and in your life. Great question.
I have a question.
Sure.
In doing this little exercise, what do you think about the idea of injecting, if possible, a little bit of humor in there to make you a little different from, the rest of the clan?
Patrick, if you love humor and humor is what you're all about, I would absolutely add that because that tells me that's part of your brand.
Okay, it's not what I'm all about, but I was thinking about it, and as part of the answer to, say, the third question, I put down something like, if you want to host a party, speak to Pat. He's hosted some very interesting parties. Just, something to be remembered
Absolutely.
by. Okay, thank you.
And maybe some very humorous or fun. Everyone, think about those little threads that you have going through this activity. Because those are the threads that you'll begin to tease out and will make part of communicating the whole you stand out without even trying. Very good. Thank you, Patrick, for sharing that. Anything else before we move on?
Someone in the chat said sometimes what you want to know for, sometimes what you want to be known for is aspirational and may not connect directly with past work experience. This leads to career transition challenges.
I don't know if the person who shared that would like to unmute themselves and say a little bit more, but absolutely. But begin to look, as those are aspirational things, what you want to be known for, especially if you're looking forward and this is 10 years into the future. How am I going to get from here to there? I often talk to this about the high school students that I work with. They know what they want to be. They have no work experience in that. Their work experience is all in a classroom or maybe after school projects. So absolutely, how am I going to get there? And what is the experience I want to have along the way? And how have the things that I have done going to help me? That's a very wonderful transition into what we're going to focus on next, which is your unique promise of value.
So I have a question. Or maybe an offer a suggestion or whatever.
Yes.
But on our LinkedIn profiles, many of us have referrals, recommendations from others. And I have found that oftentimes people will put things in there that I hadn't necessarily thought about myself. So it's their perspective, it's through their lens. And I'm like, wow, I like that. I'm going to add that to my own brand, or I'm going to pursue that. Does that sound reasonable?
Shamelessly borrow those things because a brand resides in the hearts and minds of other people. So absolutely, that's what you're known for to them. And that's how you've authentically shown up to that particular person. And one of the best ways of really uncovering and examining your brand on a very deep level is getting 360 feedback from others. So absolutely, Che, grab it, shamelessly take it and share it beyond, because It is how others see you. It is how you are known. So absolutely grab it and add that little thread. I'm somebody who squiggles all around my page and puts all kinds of other notes around it. Put those threads out there.
Great.
Find out how many other people know you that way once you begin using it.
Thanks.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Hi there, Cindy. It's Lisa.
Hi, Lisa.
I was just curious. I was just curious if you could write, if you could mention, if the person could mention like two things, or does it get too confusing? Like, should you just decide this is what I'm known for, and you think, well, I wrote this at this particular point, and you're saying like in the future you can change it, it can evolve. So is it better to just decide on one thing, or can you say, well, I'm known for this and I've done this? Is it too confusing for people's brains?
As long as it's relevant, we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Lisa, can I ask you to hold that just a little bit?
Sure, no problem.
And I think I'll get to how that links together, but it's a very good question. And the simple answer is as long as it's relevant, but we'll talk a little more about that.
Or related, right? Okay, yeah.
All right.
Cindy,
Yes.
it's another Lisa. I recently sent a thank you for a job, and in it, I took what my boss put on LinkedIn, which was amazing, and I put it in as what I can do for the company, using his words of what I've done.
Excellent. And now you have social evidence that this is what my former boss shared that I've been in, and I would love to bring that to you and do that for you. Excellent.
Well, I like how you said
you
that.
guys are good. You are way ahead.
How you just said it now is even better for me to use it, when I have to. Thank you.
You're very welcome. You guys are really focused on and moving forward with your personal branding process, and I'm very excited about that for you. So your unique promise of value. This is really, we always talk about skills and experience, but also think about what are your natural talents? What are your passions? What are your interests? What have you done? What is it that you really bring to the marketplace that is your unique promise of value? For some people, it's their service with a smile. For some people, it is how they use their natural talents to identify something unique. So think about those things that you've always done, that you did when you were 5 and 2, and ask yourself, what do other people say I do? Natural talents are those things that are so overlooked because they're so natural to us, we think everyone can do them. And unless you pull them out and dig through them a little bit, you don't always recognize them. One of the things that I do is I use my natural talent to be able to quickly see and identify the gifts of other people. I do that by listening and I'm able to see what others offer and how that fits into a transformation or into the transition of a team or an organization, and helping people identify that. That creates an alignment in an organization that only you can bring. Each of us brings something unique, and teasing out what that is and sharing that, even if someone else sees what you do and you share how they share it, like Lisa just said. One of the ways to do this, and I'm going to only spend about a minute on this because this is one you're going to have to work on a little more, but I do want to share a little formula that sometimes helps. You guys have seen it in other places. Sometimes it's used for elevator pitches as well, but it's an activity that I find really helps folks. And that is, I use my natural talents of blank and blank skills to have an impact in whatever area. And I've just given you an example of that. So I'm going to give you a minute, and Sharon's going to help me time, I hope. Thank you, Sharon, to look at that.
There we go, 1 minute.
Wonderful. Don't be afraid to incorporate your quirkiness into this. Don't be afraid to incorporate anything that you're known for, that other people share about you, into how you define your value. Your unique promise of value is something no one else can bring to the situation. And we so often overlook that because we look at a job description and we go, yeah, I can do this and this and this, but nobody can do it the way you do. And when you can say, I can do all of these things, and I'm going to bring a smile to it every day. I'm going to bring, sometimes your unique value that you bring and you get known for in a workplace is that you bring the best cookies at Christmas time or holiday time. Only you can do that the way you do it. And don't be afraid to share that in a unique way. Look at all those threads and begin to share those threads. Whether it's humor for Patrick or what your boss has shared about you, begin to look at that and share that in your way. I'm known for having fun because every job is worth doing, but if you can't have fun while you're doing it, I don't really want to do it. I like to have fun. So we do things that are fun. My teams know that we do things that are fun. I like to have fun. And I've really been missing fun in the last few weeks in my own life. And I know that it creates burnout for me when I don't have fun. So begin to think about this and move it forward. Communicating your brand. Effectively communicating your brand is about your vision, your unique promise, your experience, and your desired opportunities. What do you want to do? Where do you want to do it? Sharing that, as well as sharing your brand, helps you communicate authentically and keeps it relevant. I've been in the biotech industry, but I really want to switch over and do something different. Finance excites me. And here's what I can bring to that. You've all done a lot of matching up of your experience and your skills and how that works. And if you haven't, tap into Sharon and Meryl and let them help you do that. But what you really want to tap into is that unique promise that only you bring to those key things. What is it that you want to share with the world? No one else brings that, and be willing to share it. As you begin to share your story and your personal branding, I'm going to share a personal branding statement. You'll have this information. You don't have to copy it down. You can all get the slides and have it. But this is from one of my clients. I'm an action-oriented operations manager known for results. While running a tight, lean business is a given, my ability to partner closely with senior leadership, legal, and HR to hire top talent who align on goals, inspire others, and focus on profitability impacts the whole organization. My style is known as professional and warm, challenging but fun. This is a guy that everyone from the outside thought he was the toughest, meanest person. And if you talk to anyone who'd worked with him closely or his staff, they would tell you he was the most warm, fun, fuzzy person out there. And that's how he got things done. That's how he turned around organizations, tightened up, and kept them profitable. And he didn't know how to communicate that. Everybody can go in and be tough and cut costs. That's a given requirement. That's what gets you to the table in most manufacturing organizations. But being able to do that and have people love you and want to work for you, and being able to select top talent, that makes it different. And let me tell you, I shared this one because this is a gentleman that worked on this for almost a year. And when it hit him, he was like, he called me, he said, okay, I got it. Listen to this. I said, you got it. He rewrote his LinkedIn, etc. He had accepted a much lower paying job because he just needed to go back to work. The very next day, someone called him after reading his LinkedIn. He interviewed and he moved back 20% above where he left his prior to the position he was in. Doesn't always happen that way, but what that is about what you really bring to the table and share. So think about how you tell your story. And most of us hold back on those little things like that. He didn't think people wanted somebody who was warm and fun in manufacturing. He thought he really needed to put some other facade out there. So share your story, tell your story. What questions, thoughts? None? I'm leaving you today with a lot of homework because this is the foundation to communicating your brand. Your personal brand lives in the hearts and minds of other people, but it doesn't get the opportunity to breathe and inspire until you share your story. So share your story, share what's exciting about you, share it on LinkedIn, share it on Twitter, share it in all of the places that are important to you. Online and offline, we think of personal branding as being such an online tool, but it really is an intentional act of introspection and thinking about how can I be intentional about sharing who I really am and what I bring to the table. Not just your skills and experience, but that whole you that makes what you do so unique and so special in the marketplace. Focus. Go ahead.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
I don't want to get political. I'm not trying to be political. I'm just trying to use an example that came to my head when you were talking. But are you talking about things like when certain people ran for political office, okay? So then they're saying, okay, I came from this background. This is what made me who I am today. This is what I bring. Is that why, and I heard it from both candidates, why, without mentioning names, I don't want people to hate me. So I mean, it's just used as an example. So,
absolutely.
You know, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, talking about their background, talking about what made them who they are today and what they bring. And I hadn't heard that maybe, or I hadn't focused on that, but so explicit, you know, it's like, these are my values. These are my qualities. This is what I hope to achieve. Is that the kind of thing that you are referring to?
Absolutely. It's authenticity. It's who you are. You can't leave it behind, but you can choose not to share it. When you choose not to share it, you become one or two dimensional instead of multidimensional. We're multidimensional people and we bring our whole selves to work. And people are looking for that authentic you. They want to know who they're hiring, and they want you to bring all of that to work. That authenticity is all about that internal perspective and external perceptions.
Okay, let me ask you one question, one follow-up. So this means you cannot be overly concerned about what they are looking for. All we hear about is what is the employer looking for, and then you highlight those things that match what they happen to say. You are saying, no, this is who I am, this is my background, and it's either like, and I'm not trying to be rude, it's like either they buy into it and like it, or they don't. So you face a risk where they might not like what you're about. I don't know. That's just you can correct me, please.
So Lisa, you are who you are, and you bring it to the table. The table stakes that you're talking about, you cannot ignore. That job description, do you have it or do you not have it? I'm not going to hire somebody who doesn't have the minimum requirements.
Right.
Those are there. But what I implore you all to think about is the piece that you're leaving out. Because we're so afraid, we're all marching to a drum that says, I can do this job and here's how I can do it. But we don't show what else we bring to the table. And that's where we miss out on making that real human connection and having people really understand the true value of what they're bringing, what you're bringing. You cannot leave that out, but you want to add to it all the other things that you bring to the table that employers aren't looking for instantaneously when they're screening applicants. You have to have a combination of both. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
It is your internal perspective that will often keep you from blocking that. And it's those external perceptions. What are you known for? Are you known to be uniquely stubborn when it's about meeting a budget? That's okay. I'd be happy to have somebody on my team whose stubbornness is all about bringing that in on budget and on time. Your thoughts drive everything. Your thoughts drive your beliefs, your attitudes, your behaviors, and your results. So what is it that you're thinking about in this process? I want you to open up and be very focused on your thoughts and what you're bringing to the table. This is multidimensional, not two-dimensional. And that's where you leave stuff on the table. It also has, I shared that I was going to talk about relevance. It has to be relevant to your target audience and your decision makers. Why is your unique value proposition important in this job? How does it help? Why should decision makers and influencers care? You can't share that until you know what it is and can articulate it. And the reality is you can certainly often articulate it, but we've chosen not to because somewhere along the line, someone has said, you know, they might not like you. They might not like someone who's got humor and puts on great parties. They might say to Patrick, hey, Patrick, you're perfect for this job, but you can't be our party planner. Then he'll say, okay, I'll just plan parties for the weekend. They know what they're getting, and you know what you're getting. Does that make sense, Lisa?
Oh, sorry. Yes, it makes sense. You're just saying like you're bringing the human element into it.
Absolutely.
And
You've got to tell your story, all of your story. But you also have to tell it in a way that your target audience can hear it.
yeah,
All
you
right.
kind of have to think it through though, and how
This is
It's
not
nice to
a
have
simple
story,
process.
but how it's connected to the actual job itself or opportunities. So I think you have to, I'm just adding here, but I think you have to make the connection for them. So,
Yes.
you know what I mean? Like they can't just sit there and go, oh, okay, why is she telling me that she
Exactly.
comes from a family that does this? You need to think it, you as a,
You have to tell your target.
Make
You,
the
you are
connection.
absolutely on track. You are
that's what
absolutely on track.
I was missing. Okay.
Yes.
It's great to have a
You
story,
have to,
like,
and
how does it relate? Yes.
in telling your story, how is this relevant to your
Right.
target audience? Perfect. Thank you. I hope
I just had to add that piece.
that's perfect. That is perfect. I love it.
Thank you.
So who is your target audience? You've got to always ask that. And are you staying focused on them? For most job seekers, these are who need to see you: decision makers, influencers, hiring managers, network contacts, your personal network, colleagues, leaders, others you add to the list. Will you begin? My challenge to you is, will you begin to leverage your personal brand? Will you do this? Hopefully, I've given you enough of the key foundations today so that you can begin to do so. Now the question is, what will you do with this information? Will you use it? And how will you use it? What are your valuable insights from today?
So Cindy, I think one of the takeaways I get from this is also the component of empathy, that when we're interacting with hiring managers, frequently we're so focused on ourselves and the concern about the job that we forget to put ourselves in the shoes of that person who has a job to fill, has a need, has problems to resolve, and to couch our brand within that expectation, and equally then to bring that as that human element, because eventually you have to show up, as you mentioned, as your whole self in that position, and that person has to be able to ideate what is it going to look like to have Paul Applegren on my team, and it's my job in that interview to flesh that out so they'll know the kind of person that's going to show up, besides just those hard skills that check off the boxes.
Absolutely. And in addition to that, you've been communicating that all along. So you're not a surprise when you show up for the interview.
Also, along Paul's line of reasoning, because you got to believe that these employers are under stress. There's so many of us vying for the one or two positions that they're interviewing for, that they're under the gun. And so, as to Paul's point, they don't care about us, right? They care about themselves and the monkeys on their backs that are keeping them up at night. So as much as we want to tout who we are, and we should, if we don't necessarily put them on you don't put them on a pedestal, but you got to think about them, right? And
you have to make it relevant to them. Absolutely.
Right. Because if you just come in bragging about yourself, you're not going to stand out from the other 10 applicants who are also bragging about themselves.
It really isn't about bragging. You're right, Joey.
Right. If you can demonstrate a concern for what they're trying, if you can demonstrate to them that I can do for you today what I did yesterday over there, now you've risen, now you've added, you've increased your ability, I think, to separate yourself from the other 10 candidates that they're interviewing with and that they're going to interview tomorrow. Right. So you got to stand out, and you can focus on yourself, but if you don't put the focus on them, it's going to be a challenge. Just throwing that out there.
Absolutely. You have to do all of it.
Right.
You're absolutely correct.
Cindy, I have just one more comment, and maybe playing off a little bit of what Lisa said before, when we were talking about the 3 sentences, that you had up. And,
yes, sir.
And you show your skills. Mine happen to be planning and organizing, But one of the things I would always say, which people remembered, is, yeah, I can plan and I can organize, but the most important thing is I can herd cats. And it never failed to get a chuckle or a smile. But when I was speaking to the IT hiring managers, they knew exactly what that meant. And it was, to me anyway, it was a key that said, hey, they may remember this little phrase at the end. That's all.
Yes, absolutely. That's part of bringing that in. I really enjoyed it. I hope that you guys are taking away some additional insights. Please share your insights and your questions. Be memorable. Great comment.
So we think that we'll take a break right now while you're all getting your insights and your comments all together. And what I'm doing is I just posted in the chat box our survey. It's a Google Doc. If you cut and paste the link there and go straight to the Google Doc, please take a couple minutes. Sharon's, our timekeeper, is going to time you. But the more verbiage, the more comments you put in there, the more helpful to our speaker, because I always give the speakers back their information, and also to us for planning future programs, and also letting our funders know what it is that is working and not working with our program. So Sharon, you got that watch wound up, and go ahead and start timing, and then don't go away, come back, because then Cindy's going to be here to answer all your questions and have a conversation. So go.
How many minutes do they have?
Usually 3 minutes.
By the way, if you don't do this, then we can't have more great speakers like Cindy.
This is your payment for today. To the funders, feedback is so important. You think about how you enjoy feedback.
I don't know how to fill out the survey. I can't find it.
You can't cut and paste the link?
I tried to go,
you know what, Idell, I'll send it to you after the program. And
okay, thanks.
Click on it then, okay?
Thanks.
No problem.
Okay, that's it. Time's up.
All right, so we're open for questions. Anybody has questions, comments, dialogue? Cindy's here. Take advantage of her expertise.
Cindy, in your experience with your clients, which ones have successfully managed through this process? What did they do well? What did they do right?
What did they do well? They spent time in the beginning. They were willing to engage in the introspective process. They were willing to take their pen and their piece of paper and go sit somewhere, a corner of their house, a coffee shop when coffee shops were open and available, and did the introspective work. I usually tell people this is a 2 to 3 month process if you're really going to do it well. And you're really going to dig deep and be able to think about who your target audience is and how you want to do it. I've given you the foundation to begin. And one thing I want to say to anybody is if you get stuck, ask for help. You have Meryl, you have Sharon. You can even reach out to me. You'll have my contact information. You can even reach out to me. I'm on LinkedIn. I'll give you 15 or 20 minutes gratis to answer a question, but do the introspective process, do the homework, do the you work, because that's the foundation for everything else going forward. Great question. And one thing I would add to that is most people have done that work on their resume and on their skills and on their experience. Do it on how you want to communicate the rest and make it relevant to employers. You've noted how important that is.
Okay, I have a question then. How would you relate a lot of what you're saying? I tell my clients when it comes to negotiating salary. It seems there's a lot there. Could you talk a little bit about the correlation and how this can help you? This process could really help you get a lot more of what you deserve.
Absolutely. So the reason this process helps you get more of what you deserve is because you started it at the beginning and didn't wait till the negotiation. When we talk about salary negotiation, it's all about building your value and your worth along the way through the process. And when you get down to it, there's that human connection creates intrinsic value. And you can talk about those tangible and intangible things at that salary negotiation. But if you wait to share them until then, you've missed the opportunity for someone to have already gone to someone else and said, you know what, our band is this to this, and I really want to bring this person in at the midpoint, and I want to make that offer, because they have to get that approved 9 out of 10 times before they go into it. And if they can go up to that, they're not going to offer you that in the beginning, because they want to be the hero. And they have already been able to advocate for that. It's better satisfaction, better alignment, and increased financial benefit if you can do this along the way. So you're having this conversation. Would it be valuable to you to have someone who can herd cats? You begin the conversation about that. How important is that here? That's what I bring above anyone else. And if you've already got them to, you've all talked about the presumptive close in negotiation. If they say, gosh, Patrick, that is so important. That's more important than knowing all the technical stuff, because that's where people fail. Would that be worth a little more money, 5% more? Well, you know, Patrick, I don't know. They're looking at what they've already said. Yeah, that's it. The other piece of that, Sharon, is that personal alignment with being able to be who you are and use the skills that you love to use, that you have passion to use, and that you do naturally well, saves you from having to do those 5 or 6 things that are burnout skills for you that really create values misalignment or angst or stress in a job over time. If you can trade off, here's what I really do well, let me give these things to somebody else. in that negotiation as well, that may be worth more than 5% or 10%, because you can have a job that fits you better and you can negotiate for that. Is that helpful?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Cindy, Rebecca's asked, can you tell me what you are known for? I would love to hear the example.
So I'm known for helping individuals by using my keen ability to listen and see individual gifts and unique talents, and helping those individuals or organizations use those items in any transition or transformation. Being able to listen and see what somebody brings and where it fits in the organization, smooths transitions, and lays the groundwork for transformation of teams, individual performance, and organizational profitability.
Rebecca, did that help?
Yes, it did.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for asking.
Any other questions? We got a couple more minutes. Questions, comments? While you're thinking about that, let me just tell you that our next program, which is on February 4th, is the art of cross-selling, repackaging yourself. And we have a wonderful speaker. I don't think she's going to like that I said singer. Well, a wonderful speaker. Her name is Lisa Chinovsky-Singer, and I think she'll have a wonderful presentation. And she's going to be using a lot of breakout room networking kind of stuff while she's doing it. So hopefully you'll all come. Hopefully none of you will come back because you've all landed. But if you haven't, then hopefully we'll see you in 2 weeks. Talking about landing, because I really meant to say this morning, but I forgot. I had 3 clients land in the last week. 2 of them had been out over 2 years, and all 3 of them landed through networking. All 3 of them. One happened in a week. Job was never posted. One happened over the course of 2 months, and the third one actually has been networking with a firm for the last like 5 or 6 months, and someone where he had been networking at a firm recommended him to another firm, and he landed a job like overnight. So there's hope out there. I definitely see there are people interviewing. And if you feel like you need any help with your interviewing, with your resume, with your cover letters, then give me a call and I'll explain how we do that. But just let you know that there's definitely hope out there. And I think you guys are all going to be landed before in 2 weeks from now. But if not, then we have another great program coming up. Any more questions for Cindy?
I have one last question.
Go ahead, Patrick.
In your last explanation, your answer to the other question, you mentioned effectively active listening, that it's very important. How important a skill, well, I don't know if it's a skill, but do you think hearing or reading between the lines is when you're doing that active listening? Because sometimes what's said is not exactly always what's meant exactly. I'd just be curious about that reading or listening between the lines.
I always caution people to be very careful because that's a judgment. Unless you're going to have the opportunity to test what you think you heard between the lines and really know if that's factual, you may get into a blurring of what you think somebody wants if you're reading between the lines, because that's from your perspective. And you may be reading something one way and they may intend something totally different. Remember, words are only 7% of our communication. So be cautious about that. Be cautious about your own judgments. Those are the thoughts that drive everything else, that drive your beliefs, that drive your attitudes, that drive your behaviors, that create your results. And if I personally can't check out a judgment, I set it aside, because that's just what I think. It may or may not be what they think are intended.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Lily asked, how can your message be applied to figuring out who your references could be and how to reach out?
Who your references can be? Who knows you well? First and foremost, who knows you well? Who can speak to the whole you? Your references, you have to educate your references, just like you have to educate anyone else in this process. Do your references all have a copy of your LinkedIn profile, and you can download it as a PDF and a copy of your resume. If someone agrees to be my reference, I'm going to ask them for 15 minutes of time a week after I've sent them, at least, at a minimum, the specs on the job or project I'm working on, which for you guys is usually a job description, my resume, and my LinkedIn profile, maybe some other collateral information. Can we have a 15-minute conversation? What questions do you have? Because I want them to be on brand. I want them to be focused on what I have to offer. But first of all, I want them to know me well first. I can educate them on the other stuff.
Cindy, you also said something before in my brain somewhere about the LinkedIn, was it the LinkedIn URL?
Oh, LinkedIn, yes. I totally forgot. Thank you for bringing that back, Meryl. I let that slide. So your LinkedIn URL, someone posted their URL in the chat. Mine is LinkedIn at Key Concepts. Yours might be your name. Look at it carefully. Go into your profile and look at what your profile is, your vanity URL is. And if it's your name and a whole bunch of letters behind it, clean that up so that it's what you want it to be. Your first name, middle initial, last name. If Cindy Key is gone, it was gone in 2005. Somebody else already had it. So I chose to use my company name at that point in time, and I've never changed it because that gives me residual links back. But look at it and be sure that it's not just what LinkedIn created for you, because that makes it harder to search and harder to tie back to you. Thank you, Meryl, so much for reminding me of that. I totally forgot it.
So I actually have a question, kind of / comment. So first of all, Cindy, I want to thank you for this
You're very welcome.
Presentation today. I do feel that personal branding, like at least for me, it's something I've been working on for a number of months, and I find it the most challenging aspect, especially because I'm looking to pivot. So after a very long, successful career, and I was in, working for a large global bank in finance, treasury, and risk, I now want to do something different. And, so your advice to really kind of dig deep and be, do that introspection. It's, when you say, so there were things I was known for, but part of it, I had so much institutional knowledge. So that was one thing. I had a lot of subject matter expertise, and both of those I can't really, sell, because I want to really do something different. And I want to, obviously I'm looking to, I don't want to work for another big bank either. So I guess a couple of things that you said about, think about, what you're really good at. And I'm just finding it very challenging because I can't really talk. It's hard to talk about accomplishments because they may not transcend. Also, that was one of the things that you had mentioned.
Can I share what I just heard you say?
Yeah.
So you had a great deal of subject matter expertise and institutional knowledge.
Yes.
I heard in acquiring those, deeper gifts. So 2 gifts that I heard with that is you don't get subject matter expertise and institutional knowledge without being able to learn quickly and build the relationships and see the interconnectedness of how those things are important. And that you can take anywhere.
Okay, because one of the things okay, that's very helpful, because I did, what I kind of drew out of what I kind of figured out as my innate skills were analytical skills. So that might be similar to the learning quickly, but I didn't, and I also put like collaborative skills, collaborative leadership style. So you had said repeat again, you had said
relationship building,
Yeah.
those connections within the organization. Those are 2 things I hear instantly in that, and see how you use those over a long career to do that. But dig a little deeper and ask yourself the question of, how do I collaborate?
Yeah.
How do I analyze those analytical skills? How do I do that? What is it about how I do that that was different than someone else who also did this? Because you were not the only person in that big bank that had institutional knowledge, but you got that institutional knowledge a little differently than someone else did there, or you approach it your way. And think about how that is and how you do it. You're looking for those threads that connect that. Then you can make it relevant. Does that help, Jackie?
Yeah, that helps a lot. That really helps a lot. I was known for being an excellent risk manager. So I think, you know, and why was I known for that? It wasn't because I knew I worked for Citigroup. It wasn't just because I worked for Citi. It was because, or I knew the subject. It was also, I think, because I was able to dig deep and do insightful inquiry. So I kind of included some of that, but that's very helpful. Thank you.
Look, and ask yourself a little bit more about that insightful inquiry. What did I do in that insightful inquiry that might be something different than someone else, or it just might be, maybe you were just persistent. Maybe you just dug deep enough and turned over other rocks.
Yeah, actually, a former colleague had called me up like during the pandemic a few months ago, and she said, "I thought of you because, like, what would Jackie do?" Because I guess she felt I was like so persistent, and yeah, okay.
Find 10 people. Here's one trick you can all use. Find 10 people in your network that you're close enough to just call and say, "Send me 3 words that you would use to describe me." Just email them to me when you think of them, maybe over the next 2 weeks. That would really be helpful to me. And then think about that, because that's how you're perceived by others. That's getting that feedback from others. Look for the trends. If you do 10 people, you'll get back at least 30 words. Look for the trends in it and look for the other threads in that. Ask your kids, ask your family.
Cindy?
Yes.
Thank
Okay. I think what's coming into play, this is just my observation from that interaction, is that we're so close to us, right? To this person, right? We take it for granted
Absolutely.
that that's the way most people do things.
Thank
so
you.
We don't, and I'm not blaming or anything, but I see it myself as like, oh, of course you just pick up the phone and ask them 15 questions. Or of course you would set up a meeting and like have your 2 experts from such and such auditing department and talk to them through their process. No, not everybody does that. And we don't realize that that is something that's unique, or you phrase it in a way that people understand. How many times we sit in a meeting, half the time, I don't even understand what they're saying. I mean, I don't want to be too honest here, but a lot of times they're using terms, they're using processes that you don't understand. So you have to break it down so that you understand, so that you could teach it to somebody else. You could share your knowledge with someone. Not everybody knows how to do that, but we take it for granted.
Exactly. So Lisa's absolutely. Okay. So Lisa, one of her gifts is being able to quickly synthesize information. How many times have I shared something and Lisa's been able to synthesize it and share it in another way that someone else could hear it well? She's done it several times in this, and I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful for that. And it's a gift. It's your natural talent, your gift. We all bring those to the table.
Well, I also took a class on problem solving about 15, 20 years ago, which I thought was going to be so dumb. And I actually learned so much about rephrasing it's just a technique. So you'll say something and I just rephrase it in my own words, and then I get it. And then it's like, is that what it's true? And then you repeat and you keep getting to a greater understanding. So anyway, but I think that's what was kind of missing, is that we're so close to what we do. We think it's just that everybody does it. Like you just said in the beginning.
Yes.
Lisa,
so we don't see it as unique.
Lisa, when you're in the situation you just mentioned, that's when you need somebody who can herd cats.
Bravo. Now you begin to see the interconnectedness within your network.
Hey, one of my companies said those exact words to me, that I'm great at herding cats. Should I put that in, in my when I do a thank you note saying, former company said that? I'm not sure.
If it's relevant to
I
them.
don't think so.
Yeah, don't
If it's
just
relevant.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if they don't understand the comment, you probably don't want to work there anyway.
I don't know if I go that far.
I've got one better for you. Herding bats. It's a 3-dimensional issue.
Jeez.
Well, Cindy, I just wanted to say that exercise of asking, 10 people how to describe you in 3 words is not only a great exercise to help you, but when we do mock interviews, we often use the question, how would your supervisor describe you? How would your coworkers describe you? So it gives you that information even beforehand if you do get that question on an interview. Or if you don't get the question, you can say in the course of saying, and yes, and the way my coworkers or my network has described me in the past is, because you already have that information, which would be a great thing to bring into an interview. So it's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's social proof. It's evidence. It's not coming from you. It's coming from someone else. And when someone else says it, it has more relevance and more value. That goes back to, you can also use that in salary negotiation. You've built that up all the way through. Would that be valuable? Yeah. And those connections create more fulfillment, more satisfaction, and higher pay.
Terrific. All right. So it's a little past the time. Do we have one more question from anybody out there in cyberspace on the Zoom call? Any questions for me, for Sharon, for Cindy? Comments? Then I just want everyone to give a round of applause to thank Cindy for this amazing presentation. I learned some new things, and it's always amazing to me. I had a client years ago who said, as long as I walk away from these presentations with one new thing, then it was worth the time. So it was definitely worth the time for me, and I'm sure it has been for all of you. And as anyone who knows me, especially my children, would say, my motto in life is networking, networking. Some of you have been on the call know that I got to Cindy because one of my current clients said, why don't you call JVS in Boston and find out who they might recommend? And then I got to last Tammy 2 weeks ago and Cindy this week. And hopefully they're going to give me some names of some great speakers so that I can then move on to some new people for our next program. So if you don't remember anything else, then just keep in your head networking. Because like I said, all the clients that I have who've landed are all doing it through networking, all of them. So just keep that networking up, keep that smile on your face. And again, Cindy, thank you so much for your time today and your effort and everything else. And all the rest of you, just stay safe, stay healthy. We're near the end. Someday, hopefully soon, we'll all have a vaccine and life will go back to whatever the new normal is. But in the meantime, we're not there yet. So stay safe, stay healthy. And if you need any help, then just reach out to Sharon and I at JVS. And otherwise, have a great day. Even if it's cold, stay warm and have a great day.
Great.
Bye, everybody.
Network away. Thank you all. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Meryl. Thank you, Sharon.
Thanks, Meryl. Very good.